On a Saturday night in May 2025, a Mexican Navy tall ship called the RM Cuauhtémoc lost control in the East River. It drifted backward at nearly 6 knots and snapped its masts against the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge on live television. The ship's masts stood 158 feet above the waterline, but the bridge clears the river at exactly 127 feet. That 31-foot height discrepancy sheared off the rigging, sending heavy debris raining down and killing 2 people instantly. That terrifying collision happened just 13 months after a 980-foot container ship lost power and leveled the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore within seconds of impact. 58 days before the New York crash, the National Transportation Safety Board released its findings on the Baltimore disaster. Investigators flagged 68 bridges nationwide that had completely dodged modern ship strike vulnerability assessments. The Brooklyn Bridge was on that list. So when the Cuauhtémoc hit the span, it proved the NTSB's point. New York's most iconic crossing is operating with an unmeasured, systemic vulnerability to the massive vessels navigating beneath it right now. You wouldn't know it from looking at the bridge today. In 2024, the city wrapped up a $300 million award-winning restoration project. Crews spent years meticulously cleaning every limestone and granite block on the towers and injecting protective jet grout deep into the Manhattan side foundations. But that $300 million only repaired what engineers could physically reach. Tucked away above and below the waterline are 2 catastrophic flaws locked into the bridge's 19th century construction, flaws that nobody can safely fix. To understand why, you have to look at the river itself. In 1867, the East River was an impossible environment for a bridge. It spanned 4 football fields across, dropped deeper than a 7-story building, lacked accessible bedrock, and operated as one of America's most heavily trafficked waterways. The chief engineer, Washington Roebling, bypassed the water completely. He decided to sink pneumatic caissons, massive pressurized wooden chambers, straight into the riverbed to anchor his stone towers. This animated diagram shows how those caissons worked. As heavy masonry was stacked on the roof, workers inside the pressurized chamber below dug through thousands of years of silt and clay by hand, completely in the dark. At depths up to 78 feet, the workers endured pressures of 35 pounds per square inch. When they returned to the surface too quickly, nitrogen bubbles formed in their blood. Dozens died from what doctors later named caisson disease, or the bends. A rapid ascent in 1872 destroyed Washington Roebling's own health, leaving him bedridden and paralyzed with pain. Belaborers paid with their lives to build miraculous limestone foundations, but they built them for 1870s wooden ships. Today, those identical foundations sit completely exposed, lacking modern fender systems or deflection barriers to absorb a strike from a massive steel vessel. With the chief engineer paralyzed, the construction site desperately needed a liaison. Washington's 28-year-old wife, Emily Warren Roebling, stepped in. She had no formal engineering credentials and lived in a country where she couldn't legally vote. Emily taught herself higher mathematics and complex cable construction. For the next 11 years, she walked to the site daily, relayed exact technical instructions to the foreman, and repeatedly faced down a suspicious board of trustees to defend the structural designs on their own engineering merits. Emily's fierce command of the site ensured the tower successfully reached the sky. But while she managed the visible construction, she couldn't stop a massive mechanical failure happening quietly in a warehouse off-site. A contractor named J. Lloyd Hague won the bid to supply the steel suspension wire. Instead of delivering the high-quality, inspected steel he promised, Hague ran a swap operation, sending over weak, brittle wire that looked completely identical. Looking at this cross-section diagram of a main cable, you can see how the suspension system operates. The bridge hangs from 4 of these main lines. Each one is a dense cylinder of over 5,000 individual steel wires, spun, bundled, and wrapped incredibly tight to form a permanent, solid mass. By the time Roebling's engineers realized Hague was cheating them, it was too late. An estimated 221 tons of that defective, brittle wire had already been tightly woven into the core of the cables. Once wrapped, suspension wire is permanent. You cannot pull it back out. Tearing down the entire structure was out of the question. Roebling ordered 150 extra, high-quality wires woven into each cable to try and compensate for the weak steel buried inside. That desperate 1880s compromise created an inspection nightmare today. Because the cables are wrapped so tightly, modern engineers can only sample the outer layers for corrosion. Nobody can actually see what is happening to the fraudulent steel trapped at the center. Industry analysts now describe the Brooklyn Bridge cables as the world's oldest and largest experiment in metal fatigue. Every day, those unverified wires carry thousands of cars and pedestrians. Swapping them out would require completely dismantling and rebuilding the 143-year-old bridge from scratch. In 2017, the city estimated a full rehabilitation would cost over $1 billion, a figure that has only ballooned since. So the city is left with unfixable, uninspectable cables holding the span from above, and completely unprotected 19th century stone piers holding it from below. When the massive dolly hit the Key Bridge in Baltimore, the structure came down in seconds. Modern freight ships dwarf the ferries Roebling designed for. The Brooklyn Bridge is a 19th century artifact trapped in a 21st century world. New York has to decide if it will physically protect the stone piers and address the metal fatigue, or simply wait to become the next Baltimore.